Howdy peeps, hope everyone's doing well. So I've recently done the other video regarding stonewalling, gaslighting, narcissism and toxicity. And this is kind of a continuation of which this is 13 signs of gaslighting in your relationship. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there that can relate to these. And I want to talk about the different points as we sort of go through them. So the first one is no longer feeling like the person you used to be. How many times have you been in that situation where, you know, you meet someone new, you're excited about them, you're excited about meeting them, you're excited about knowing about them, you know, and excited about spending time with them. After all, life is an adventure, right? But then as time passes, you know, these people do tend to wear you down, even if it's not something that they necessarily do towards you intentionally. It just might be their actions or the way they go about things. And it does sort of suck the life out of you, as it were. So yeah, you might end up feeling that you're not the person that you used to be. Number 2, being more anxious and less confident than you used to be. And that is quite heavily related to number 1. In whereas when these people start breaking down your psyche or your confidence levels or your self-worth, and again, it might not even be directly, it might just be a case of they tell you about situations, stories about their workmates or their social circles, and you know, you get all sorts of red flags popping up as to the type of people that they're hanging out with and how they behave, you know. And again, that can cause a level of anxiety. I mean, after all, if you know we're talking about relationships, then you know once that time of you were happy to see them and you know you were confident about the situation, and that gets broken down over time, then yeah, your confidence does get taken out of you and your anxiety level goes up. Now, in guys, this can be seen as a sign of neediness, a weakness, as it were. But I think, realistically speaking, it's more to do with your body or your psyche knowing that there's something not quite right with it, that situation. Number 3, now here's a good one. Often wondering if you're being too sensitive. How many times have we heard that? You're being too sensitive, you're taking it out of context, blah, 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 blah. You know the score. And it's not that you're being too sensitive. It's just that once your confidence does slowly get drained from you and you're no longer being the person that you used to be, it does cause you a level of anxiety. You could argue for a level of insecurity within yourself. You begin to doubt yourself, which is, again, part of gaslighting, and I'm sure we'll come to that soon. Number 4, feeling like everything you do is wrong. Or another way to look at that is, no matter what you do, you can't keep that other person happy. Now, this one is a two-way street. It can affect guys as well as girls, but since I'm mostly talking to the guys out there, yeah, no matter what you do, she just never seems to be quite happy. Again, this is sort of quite a subjective one, admittedly. But obviously, when you start feeling that everything you do is wrong, again, it all comes down to self-confidence, being the person that you used to be, and then wondering if, yeah, you're being too sensitive. Always thinking it's your fault when things go wrong. Again, this can be done as a psychological kind of tactic from another person in not being able to keep the other person happy or whatever. You know, it, again, affects all the other 4 mentioned issues. Number 6, apologising often. You see, when you find yourself in a situation where you're constantly apologising, it does kind of make you question as to whether you're actually doing something wrong or whether this other person cannot be pleased no matter how hard you try. Again, in the sense of needy individuals, or perhaps another way to look at it would be, well, you could argue for sort of like codependent maybe, perhaps, but yeah, I won't go too down that road right now. But if you find yourself apologising often, it's not that necessarily you're doing something wrong. It's just that you might be doing something wrong by someone else's, well, standards. Number 7, having a sense that something's wrong but being unable to identify what it is. Again, this is that gut feeling. We talk a lot about gut feeling and how you should go with it. Perhaps you've been that guy that there was just something about that girl that you cannot put your finger on what it is that you like about them. Or not necessarily that you like about them, it's just something about them and you don't know what it is. And the kind of cause and effect that can have on the guy. Again, some people, they tend to go into fixing mode, whereas they try and do as best they can to try and fix the other person, but realistically speaking, all you end up doing is winding them up even more, or worse yet, they lose respect for you. Now, in terms of toxic people or narcissists, then they don't have a great deal of respect for you in the first place. Sure, they may put on a big show and, put you high up on a pedestal. As the saying goes, though, what goes up must come down. And obviously the higher heights that they take you to, with regards to uplifting you, doing things for you and all of that, make no mistake, it's all going to get used against you at some point. So if they're putting you on a pedestal, be very concerned. And again, this isn't just necessarily to do with romantic relationships. You can find this within friendships as well. Number 8, often questioning whether your response to your partner is appropriate. For example, wondering if you were too unreasonable or not loving enough. Now, this is quite a difficult one when you're being gaslit anyway, because oftentimes they'll actually tell you the tone that you were talking to them in, or worse yet, what you actually meant, or how you actually feel about a situation. I can't think of a worst example of someone having a lack of understanding for another person when they immediately get to assume how the other person feels and then has the audacity to tell them so. But, kind of with that, I suppose if you do end up having an argument, which I would argue that if you know how to handle women, you don't really have arguments with them. You don't. It is more to do with communication. But in the exceptions where they may be relatively toxic, they have no intention of communicating with you in a normal manner. You'll find them acting passive-aggressively. Switch and bait and all of that. Number 9, making excuses for your partner's behaviour. Now there's a personal favourite, also known as cognitive dissonance. You see, cognitive dissonance is when someone is repeatedly batting you on the head with something and you tell yourself that A, you shouldn't be in that situation because you're being battered on the head, and at the same time you are literally making an excuse for their shitty behaviour. Oh, they've got this wrong with them. Oh, but if I just loved them a little bit more. This is one we do often hear quite a lot. Again, it comes from the roots of codependency. But I've got a bit to talk about on that a bit later. In fact, I think I might have covered it in my other video. But anywho. Number 10. Avoiding giving information to friends or family members to avoid confrontation about your partner. Yeah. Oftentimes if you've got a good set of friends and a good set of family members who are not toxic, you won't want them to know the sort of darker side of the person that you're with because, A, you've got cognitive dissonance. So you don't really want to face it yourself, let alone tell your family members about it. Now, narcissistic people, on the other hand, they love doing the exact opposite to that. They just get such a kick out of it, telling other people what a bad person you are, or that time that you did this out of the other, or when you said this out of the third, So it does come with its own set of problems. But needless to say. Number 11, feeling isolated from friends and family. Now this is something that narcissistic people do tend to do. The idea, whether intentional or not, is to have you as alienated from your friends and family as possible. In some cases they will go as far as mixing and mingling with your friends and family. In some cases they do it from a bad perspective. because they have the intention of trying to destroy your reputation, or a character assassination, as we call it, by bad-mouthing you to their, well, behind your back and to their face, obviously. And again, the further away they can alienate you from your friends and family, the better. For them, of course. Number 12 is finding it increasingly hard to make decisions. Well, this does come down to number 1 and number 2 and number 3. Whereas you're no longer feeling like the person you used to be. You are being more anxious about the situation and less confident than you used to be. And often wondering if you're being too sensitive. Because this is what gaslighting does to you. And there's plenty of other things that it does too. I'm not sure if it'll include in this one. Number 12. Feeling hopeless and taking little or no pleasure in activities you used to enjoy. That one is usually when they've sucked the life out of you. And you do end up like a former shell of yourself, pretty much. Your emotions have been battered down. Your emotional intelligence has taken a battering. For those of you who don't know what emotional intelligence is, I'll probably be covering that at some point as well. But as a result of all these, I actually think that they've left one out, which is quite important. And it is to do with stonewalling as well. And that is the sort of whole treading on eggshells, where you end up having to watch what you say around someone, or you feel you can't be as direct as what you'd like to be through fear of upsetting them. And then, of course, with that, through fear of repercussions of upsetting them. So, yeah, gaslighting is a pretty bad thing, obviously. And, we do see it, I suppose, quite a lot on the internet as well. It's not necessarily that in all cases people are just toxic and narcissistic. Sometimes it is a case of they might do something for the sake of humour. But the get out clause that a lot of people have is, oh, well, I just intended it as humour. And again, this can be used as a bait and switch on an individual as well, even if you're being as honest and sincere as you possibly can. And yeah, we do see this quite a lot from the political sides as well, but I'm not going to get too involved with that one. So, I guess to wrap it up in a nutshell, gaslighting is a form of mental abuse in which information is twisted or spun, selectively omitted to favour the abuser, or false information is presented with the intent of making the victims doubt their own memory, perception and sanity. And that is spot on. I mean, I can't even argue with that one. That is exactly what it's about. And unfortunately, there are a lot of toxic people out there who do use that kind of stuff to their advantage. And the other good one is just a joke. I'm just joking. I'm just messing with you. Sounds, it's to see you being oversensitive. Really. But these are all things that you should really, really look out for within the relationships and the people that you engage with. Because obviously it doesn't stop. And you're constantly put in a position of self-doubt. So it is a case of withdrawing and getting yourself out of these situations and learning who you really are, remembering who you really are, and remaining who you really are by avoiding these people and cutting them out of your life full stop. It's the best thing you can do. Anyhow, thanks for listening. Thoughts, comments and opinions, feel free to jot them down as always. Till the next one, stay cool, stay free, and peace out.